the fire's coming out of your ass.
Howdy, boy.
What?
Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards, fire up your fingers, and come join the conversation.
A little too loud, isn't it?
Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People. It is Friday, 11/29/19, Black Friday to be precise, although we're not going to be commercial whores tonight because that would be in poor taste. I did that a week or so ago, right?
No, you can do it today.
Nah. Now, today it's business as usual. Second Amendment related news, politics, and current events. But before we get into all that, I want to welcome my esteemed panel tonight. Here for a surprise visit, we got the one who strikes at night, Night Strike himself, Mike from GunTube. How you doing, sir?
Shut up, you infringed!
Yes, it has been a while since we've heard that here. Coming up next, we got the sourpuss himself, the Tactical Pickle, Calaveras 32 Special. How you doing, sir?
Doing just fine, Budget. Thank you for the invite.
Hey, no problem. Always welcome. And we have royalty here, the Kingpin, David Bowling.
Hello, everybody, and I'm doing the kingly wave. You just can't see it.
That's what you call
This
it.
one right here,
Okay.
right? Out in the chat. Calaveras 32 Special, full of double duty. Grim 90. Let's see. D-Temp 62, how are you? If you're out there, post something so I can say hello to you as well. Because I can't see you if you don't post. So, how was you guys? How were y'all's Thanksgiving?
Awful.
Awful? How is it awful?
I had to go to Walmart.
Oh, well, you had to go to Walmart, or you chose to go to Walmart in a fit of crass commercialism.
We'll call him A and call him B. But I got a damn good deal
I
out
avoid
of
Black
it.
Friday
So
shopping.
I got a pretty damn good deal out of it, so I'm not really that complaining that much. I'm just trying to cause drama.
I hate crowds, I hate people being behind me, and I hate people being real close to me. You get all of that at Black Friday. Plus,
Yeah, but you just kind of hate
unruly
people in general.
who aren't behaving in a respectable fashion. Yeah, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't take it.
Well, hold on. You just hate people in general because you have to deal with their children every day.
Well, yeah, that too, but it's the whole unruliness, I guess, of it. Because in my world, chaos and confusion is really, really bad and dangerous, so I try and avoid it, especially when I can't impose order on it.
That's what she said.
And I guess that I guess it's good. It's a good thing that I'm not in charge of the country or the world then, because I would be a wreck. Yeah.
You mean you aren't already?
And clearing of the throat in the line doesn't always work so well when there's that many people around either.
Yeah.
Well, that was an
I don't know if I
unintentional
will.
clearing. That was unintentional. I wasn't trying to say nothing. I was just actually clearing my throat, but, he took it wrong. And I should have kept my damn mouth shut and not responded to him, but that's neither here nor there. How about you, Pickle? How was Thanksgiving for you?
Went well. It was busy. It was our first year for my fiance and I to host. So, there was a lot of prep work, a lot of work and a lot of cleanup afterwards, but it went well.
Good. Kingpin, how about you?
Mighty fine, nice and slow, just the way I like it.
Outstanding. My Thanksgiving was early. I had dinner Wednesday because on Thanksgiving, I was working and had to listen to some 16-year-old girl scream and pound and cry and throw a temper tantrum for about 4 hours because I couldn't go in and encourage her to be quiet because she decided that she was going to strip herself naked in her cell, and at that point it's like, you go ahead and bang, sweetheart. Nope. You do you. I'm going to go over here and just ignore your ass because nope. I don't engage in restraints of naked 16-year-old girls. Not good.
Pneumatic tranquilizer gun with the darts that can travel a distance might be beneficial.
That would be great, but yeah. So yeah, after things calmed down, Thanksgiving was all right. I just chilled and watched a little bit of a movie with a couple of the kids, and all was well. As far as the dinner, that was of course absolutely wonderful, worthy of a 5-star restaurant because I prepared it.
I'm surprised no one got food poisoning.
No, man. Listen. You don't develop a body like this one by not being able to cook. That's all I'm saying. I
don't believe you.
I cook well.
So do I. So.
So yeah, all was good. I'm glad you guys came through it. Glad you survived Black Friday. I'm glad that everybody out there in the chat survived Black Friday. We have a few more coming in. We got, let's see, who do we got? We got Seven Wonders came in. How you doing? Kingpin pulling double duty too. Kinky Spinker. Jason Stewart, how you doing, Jason? So, yes. Hello, everybody out there. Okay, so the gigantic kerfluffle that we had over the past week. Are any of you guys conversant with the Whiskey Warrior 556 kerfluffle? That gigantic steaming pile of whatchamacallit?
Excrement?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it bad to say that I don't care?
Well, I think it goes to it. I don't necessarily care either, but it has and or had the potential to make the rest of us look
miserable.
Miserable. Make us all look bad. And again, it adds to the divisiveness within our community. And yes, I know Warsaw's going to be out there saying this isn't a community, et cetera, but yeah, within our gun rights community, it makes us look like freaking idiots.
I love Warsaw, I really do, but
he
needs to calm down and take a deep breath sometimes.
Yes, D-Temp, that was the red flag that wasn't. So
did this make
article,
national news, or
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did this make national news, or is this just stuff we know about? Like, I didn't see this on the news anywhere.
It was flooded all over social media in the Second Amendment community, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so nobody knows about it. Then it's of us, basically.
So far.
Okay.
This is
I just didn't know if there was like something reported on or not.
This is a piece from a article on 2acops.com. Yes, it's from a police point of view, but, facts is facts.
I want a police point of view. I'll ask Sarge.
Whiskey Warrior 556 is the Mike Brown of the 2A community, which I thought was a very interesting title. Last night, this is from November 24, 2019. By Matt Sylvie. Last night, a guy whom I've not heard of because I don't Instagram regularly, who goes by the name of Whiskey Warrior 556, went live on Instagram and claimed the cops were there at his house trying to serve a red flag order to get a 30-round PMAG from him. That was all it took for internet gun guys to lose their freaking minds and start asking people to literally go to the location and help the guy. Turns out, Whiskey Warrior 556, whose real name is Alexander Booth, was lying out of his ass. The cops were not there to enforce a red flag law. They were there to arrest Booth for a warrant. You see, Booth and his wife are separated, and at some point in the recent past, Booth and his wife had a domestic violence incident. The cops had a warrant for his arrest based on that prior incident. Booth knew this is why they were there, because according to him, he was in contact with the cops via the phone. Sadly, several people whom I respect, and a couple I'm even friends with, fell for Booth's lies hook, line, and sinker, and they lost it. Facebook pages and Instagram accounts of gun folks blew up. People were calling for militias to show up, for people to gear up and respond, and quite honestly, a scary number of people were talking about shooting cops. Mr. Guns and Gear, who happens to be a former cop himself, literally suggested that people on scene shoot, quote, the traitors, unquote, when referring to the cops on scene who were there to arrest a domestic violence suspect. Shows a screenshot of comments from a thread. Mr. Guns and Gear at Whiskey Warrior 556 is apparently currently in a standoff with police who are trying to red flag him. If any patriots are there in the area, he needs backup ASAP, then gives the address. Someone said, send help. To do what? To shoot some cops? Mr. Guns and Gear says, shoot traitors. The militia folks, the 3%ers, the cop blockers and cop haters, and the patriots all came out of the woodwork. Many seemed to be chomping at the bit to start the boogaloo. Most of them stayed safely behind their keyboards, screaming about oathbreakers and bootlickers, but sadly, quite a few actually got into vehicles and headed toward a small New York town called Mahopac. All of this over lies told by some drunk a-hole who happens to be a veteran, who is reportedly suffering from PTSD, who apparently likes to smack around his soon-to-be ex-wife. Absolutely none of this was helped by the horrible way the social media aspect was handled by the local agencies involved. They would post something, then delete it, and replace it with something else. Finally, a post describing the incident was posted, but later, it too was inexplicably deleted. The law enforcement social media message was incoherent at best. And it shows a screenshot of a release from the Putnam County Sheriff's Department. On 11/23/2019 at approximately 2:19 p.m., a member of the Town of Carmel Police Department was in the area of 50 Putnam Drive investigating a prior domestic incident involving the 28-year-old resident Alexander Booth. The officer, hearing what he believed to be a gunshot came from the residence, requested backup. When additional officers arrived, Mr. Booth was observed in his doorway, acting in an agitated state before returning inside his garage apartment and barricading himself. As a safety precaution, officers evacuated the neighboring houses and alerted the Putnam County Emergency Response Team and negotiation team. Negotiators made contact with Mr. Booth, and after 6 hours of discussion, they were successful in convincing him to surrender without incident. Thanks to their tireless efforts, no civilians or police were harmed. Alexander Booth was subsequently arrested on a felony warrant issued by Town Justice Jacob Ellis, stemming from the previous domestic incident. Mr. Booth was charged with penal law, burglary second degree, a Class C felony, criminal trespass, a Class A misdemeanor, criminal contempt second degree, a Class A misdemeanor, aggravated harassment second degree, a Class A misdemeanor, petite larceny, a Class A misdemeanor. He was arraigned in Carmel Town Justice Court. At the conclusion of this incident, no weapons or ammunition feeding devices were found or seized, despite numerous false social media posts to the contrary. The Town of Carmel Police Department was assisted by the Putnam County Sheriff's Office and the Westchester County Department of Public Safety Special Response and Negotiation Teams. Finally, hours after it was resolved, they posted something that finally stated why they were there. By the time it was too late. The conspiracy theory nuts were now present, so everything to them is some sort of cover-up. Some of these fools are suggesting Booth was likely killed by the cops, that the statements released are lies, that the media, who may I remind you hates the cops, was lying to cover for the cops, and these tinfoil hat-wearing window lickers are demanding proof of life. Had this incident jumped off, it would have been just like the riots in Ferguson, Missouri. A huge wave of destruction, all based on a lie. Everyone in this incident really needs to sit down and take a long, hard look at what happened last night, and I mean everyone. From my perspective, some lying sack of crap nearly kicked off a gunfight between two different groups, both of which I'm a member. The cops and the gun rights supporters. I am pissed as hell at Whiskey Warrior 556 and you should be too, no matter which group you fall into. We all need to learn something from this incident. Law enforcement agencies need to learn how to deal with things on social media. And I mean absolutely must get better about how they deal with things on social media. It is no longer an option. Social media drives so many things today that it is dangerous for everyone to not know how to properly communicate the right message. Social media gun folks, you really need to be careful about what you say and who you support, especially those who you support without question. Is some random Instagram dude who you don't even know in real life so reliable that you're willing to start the next civil war based solely on his word? You may not realize it, but many of you have a significant amount of influence over a great many people. To quote Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Please exercise your influence responsibly.
I've got influence since when?
Just like any other situation, you need to slow down and take some time for the facts to come out. Like many other previous incidents where the cops were involved, what is initially reported on social media turns out to not have been slightly close to reality. As a guy who detests red flag laws and knows that they are in fact being enforced in some areas, I understand that many people are justifiably concerned about them. But running off and doing some really dumb stuff just because someone you don't know said something on social media is, well, really dumb. It quite honestly scares me to think just how bad this situation could have gone, and all based on lies told by some drunk guy who did not want to go to jail. This could have been so very bad for everyone. So, gents, open discussion on this. If you have something to say, say it. Just remember we're PG-13 around now.
I'm just still reeling from the fact that I have influence.
Hey,
I'll admit that's for... when I saw it come across my, social media feed from other people who are generally more plugged in than I am, I shared out their content. But, the following day when more information came out, I made sure to share that as well, with the caveat saying that I misunderstood from the night before. So a learning experience for me as well.
I don't think the police department should have a Twitter feed. I don't want the cops sending out tweets, because they're just as liable to make a mistake in 140 characters on the spur of the moment as anybody else that uses that platform. No more police departments sending out social media messages. That's the first start. The second start is, I hope none of those guys ever complain next time a Brett Kavanaugh gets charged with rape with no evidence, or pick any other 100,000 times that we flipped out when somebody on, say, the left or the other side of things, jumps to the Jesse Smollett thing. Jesse Smollett said that he was beat up in the middle of the night on the coldest day of the year in Chicago, coming home from Subway, and everybody was like, oh, okay. And then 5 seconds later, when evidence came out, we found out that he was just a big liar. So, I hope people keep that in mind next time that somebody jumps off the rails on something that you think is, you need to, slow down and think about stuff for a minute.
Well, you realize there's a reason I didn't jump to this, and I didn't jump to go and try and help this guy out or say anything for this guy when it happened, because I was cautious about the whole thing. Because you shouldn't get involved unless you know the full story. And if you don't know the full story, you shouldn't be quick to react.
If we're talking about killing people, and I know a cop is just a person, but let's be real. We hold cops to a different standard. Cops aren't just regular people. For somebody to be calling for, you go out and kill a police officer, and you don't know anything about what's going on, that is horrendous. They should be ashamed of themselves. It's disgusting.
Night Strike hit the nail directly on the head as far as my opinion on this goes. Because I woke up in the middle of the night.
Whoa, are we recording this?
Huh?
Are we recording this? Because
yes, this is recorded.
Darn.
Night Strike hit the nail on the head as far as my opinion on this goes. I woke up in the middle of the night while this was going on and tuned into some live streams and was listening to the Scanner channel and all that about this. And I thought about, for a brief instant, clout chasing and going live with this. I really did. But I decided that the prudent thing to do would be what I always would be to do what I complain that the media never does, and wait for more information. Wait to know exactly what's going on before I stick my oars in the water. You know, I think that the last couple paragraphs on the article were spot on as well. We need to take a minute, step back, take a deep breath, and wait for some information before we start issuing calls to action. Especially those of us who have a platform. You know, how many times have you listened to me sit here and rail about the media using any tragedy that they can, dancing in the blood of innocent victims to further their agenda? How many times? How many times have you heard me say that they don't even know what's going on? The bodies aren't even cold yet before they get out there and start plugging away. Mm-hmm. This is the same damn thing. What the social media guys did, our guys did, was irresponsible and downright reprehensible in encouraging people to jump on this bandwagon before they had any clue what was actually happening. Sorry, guys, but that's it. You know, if we want to be a responsible community, we have to police our own. And I absolutely loved Tim from Military Arms Channel. He was wrong. I absolutely loved Mr. Guns and Gear. I'm subbed to them both. Watch them both all the time. He was wrong. Anybody that encouraged people to go and interfere with this incident was dead wrong. Because they had no idea what was really going on. The people who actually know the person, this Whiskey Warrior, this Alex Booth guy, are telling us, no, he's full of shit.
Hey, how about this? Even if it was a red flag seizure, even if that guy was as innocent as the day is long, stay out of it.
Yeah.
It's not your deal. If you want to protest, do all that kind of stuff. Don't put police and the neighborhood in danger and that person in danger by talking about let's go kill cops.
And worst of all, that's it. That's the worst part. Don't encourage people to shoot anybody. That is the worst sort of reprehensible, irresponsible behavior from somebody who's supposed to be an ambassador for this community. You did us no favors by calling for patriots to go shoot traitors. None. You did us no favors. Not that Mr. Guns and Gear is ever going to hear my words on this and, you know, budget guns and gear.
Nobody cares.
Who the hell's that? You know, but
yeah.
It's reprehensible to do something like that. I mean, you know, you can't. You can't do it. You know, if you find out that there's squads of law enforcement going door to door, and you know, door to door, house by house, and stripping guns, that might be one thing. Then it might be time to go and resist that. You know, if they come to your town and they start at one end and sweep through to the other, well, before they get to you, you might want to gather some guys and resist that. That might be the line in the sand. But when they're serving what is, and even though it's an unconstitutional law, the red flag orders, when they're doing their job there, you stay out of it. That's what the court system's for. You know, Monday.
If you want to help resist it at that point, that's where, you know, helping to gather, you know, finances for legal representation for the court battle will be a much better option than to go to the neighborhood armed.
Yes. And second of all, they were going there on a complete lie, on a false premise. Yeah, out there in the chat, someone was talking about, well, this whole thing could have been avoided if they hadn't lied about the gunshot. Well, hearing a gunshot's completely irrelevant. Whether they heard one or not is completely irrelevant. They were going there to serve a warrant from this guy beating on his wife and threatening his kid, threatening both his wife and his child. So, gunshots, acting crazy, whatever, that's got nothing to do with it. They were going to serve a warrant for something that he should have a warrant issued for. But he lied to everybody about it. And the people that white knighted and wanted to charge in and save a fellow gun lover and fellow Instagrammer and social media influencer,
they were duped.
Cavalry into the rescue, y'all were lied to. And it demonstrates why you have a responsibility to make sure you have your ducks in a row before you open your mouth or your keyboard or whatever as the case may be. I mean, am I wrong here?
No, the most likely thing that would have happened if the crowd would have got rowdy and the police would have had to start being a little bit more forceful, people would have got arrested, people would have got tased, and what if a cop would have had to shoot somebody defending? Because, hey, bring your guns and shoot cops. You don't shoot cops with a straw and a spitball in it. You bring a gun.
Yeah.
You pull a gun on a police officer, you're getting shot.
Here's
Period.
the thing. If somebody goes after hearing your words and your call to action, if they go there and they shoot a cop or they get shot, that blood's on your hands. Because they wouldn't have done it until you told them to. You're responsible.
And see, that's the worst part about it, is because right then is when you'd have a bunch of people, good, decent people, that would come out and defend. You can't charge my client for this murder because he said go out and kill somebody. So there'd have to be decent people out there that would have to defend that, and then that's putting them in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get a lawyer. The lawyer's got to defend you the best that they can when you really deserve to probably be arrested if something like that happens.
So now here we are. I'm glad the media didn't pick this up, because it is just tailor-made for their propaganda machine. Because now we look like a bunch of jackasses, because they would paint us all with the same brush. We all look like a bunch of jackasses who go off half-cocked, want to go and kick off Civil War II over nothing. It isn't even a righteous cause. And we're doing the same garbage, and thankfully it didn't go this far, but we would have been doing the same garbage that the people who burned down Ferguson and looted those stores and did all that did. The same kind of thing over a lie, but it would have been us doing it.
And remember the next time you hear somebody say that the left reacts to emotions and the right reacts to facts, that's a lie. We're just as emotional as the left is. Don't think it's not true. And this case perfectly shows it.
And the difference between us has to be that we call it out when we see it. And that's why I decided finally to say something about this tonight. We have a responsibility to call this out and police our own. Again, not that they're going to hear a thing I said, and not that they're going to care if they did hear it. Budget guns and who? I get it. But, it's I feel that it's a responsibility to call it out. And it's a bunch of garbage. They should have never done it. They should have waited to get the facts. Poor conservative says, well, it's about darn me, Mike. Huh? Okay. About darn time, maybe? Maybe. And I think I went through all that without a single F-bomb. So, yay me! Cow farts bear. Nobody shot anybody, thankfully. We were talking about the Whiskey Warrior 556 debacle and how there were some internet gun guys calling for patriots to go there and, quote, shoot traitors, meaning the cops, when it wasn't even a red flag law. Red flag seizure. It was serving a warrant over a domestic dispute. Poor conservative says, time, darn autocorrect. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. I hear you. All right, so that's enough of that. I felt that I had to say something about it and call out the garbage as I saw it. Speaking of just pure and straight garbage, wow, Virginia, I feel bad for you guys. You know, you've got all kinds of, first off, you were foolish enough to vote in a bunch of anti-gun politicians into your state legislature. And now you are reaping that harvest.
Because you guys didn't go out and vote.
Because you didn't go out and vote. This is a piece from American Military News from Ryan Morgan on November 26, 2019. Sweeping Virginia gun ban, likely confiscation without grandfather clause, proposed by state legislature. Virginia lawmakers are now considering a state law banning the ownership of certain semi-automatic guns deemed assault firearms and limiting the magazine capacity of other firearms in the state. And there are no clauses that would allow existing owners to continue possessing them. Virginia State Senator Richard Saslaw introduced Senate Bill 16, which would expand the definition of an assault firearm to cover many different semi-automatic rifles and pistols. The bill would call for the ban of such firearms, barring people from purchasing, possessing, selling, or transferring these weapons. Among the changes in firearm definitions, the bill would expand the term assault firearm to include semi-automatic centerfire rifles and pistols with a fixed magazine capacity greater than 10 rounds. The bill would also ban semi-automatic rifles and pistols with detachable magazines that also have folding and telescoping stocks, barrel shrouds, and thumbhole grips and second-hand grips. Rifles, under the new bill, would not be allowed pistol grips, bayonet mounts, grenade or flare launchers, silencers, muzzle brakes, and flash suppressors. Virginians would not be allowed pistols that accept the magazine into the weapon at any other point than the pistol grip. Pistols would also have an unloaded weight limit of 50 ounces. The bill also limits shotguns to a magazine capacity of no more than 7 shells. The provisions of this act may result in a net increase in periods of imprisonment or commitment, the bill says, indicating increased imprisonments as one of the likely outcomes of its passage. Senator Saslaw did not respond to multiple requests for comment by American Military News. In reaction to the newly proposed bill, the National Rifle Association's Institute for Legislative Action reported the bill would ban many commonly owned firearms like the AR-15. The NRA-ILA also noted the bill does not grandfather in existing owners of the firearms described. Current owners would reportedly have to give up their banned firearms or face a felony conviction. The gun advocacy group described the legislation as clearly designed to be firearms confiscation. Along with the specific items listed to be banned, the law also prohibits any characteristic of like kind. The gun advocacy group described the like kind language as unacceptable vagueness that would burden gun owners with guessing how courts may interpret the provision and potentially judge components on their firearms. Violations of the law would constitute a Class 6 felony. According to Virginia law, such felonies may be punishable by up to 5 years in jail. NRA-ILA suggested the legislation is a result of former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg's heavy financial involvement in recent Virginia state elections. Really? Bloomberg, who officially confirmed his bid for U.S. president on Sunday, has listed gun control as a key component of his campaign platform. Bloomberg's Everytown for Gun Safety advocacy group spent some $2.5 million in the election, according to CNBC. The gun advocacy group greatly outspent the NRA's own $300,000 it threw into the race. The spending may have played a key role in Democrats winning control of the legislature for the first time since 1994. The Democratic control of both the Virginia House and Senate, along with Governor Ralph Northam, may raise the likelihood the bill will pass. In a statement by Everytown for Gun Safety following the Virginia elections, the organization touted 15 of its endorsed candidates won in the state. Everytown for Gun Safety and the Virginia chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, a part of Everytown, today celebrated the victory of 15 endorsed candidates in Virginia. The candidates were running in key districts against gun lobby-backed candidates in the NRA's home state, the November 7th statement read. So, yeah, Virginia. You guys got
with Virginia,
some bad stuff coming. And then there's this law about this proposed bill about training. Makes it illegal to train for a militia purpose. So that's just crazy.
I was going to ask about that, because with that militia bill, the article I read on it was saying it was a pre-proposal because the legislature was not in session. But then with the article you just read about the assault weapons law, they're saying it has been proposed. So are they in session yet, or are they not? And if they're not,
I do not know.
It sounds like both bills are probably in pre-proposal stage.
You know who I should have invited on the chat tonight was John Crump, because he knows about this. He lives in Virginia, and he's part of he's like one of the state bigwigs for GOA there. Should have asked him to come on the chat tonight, damn it.
Was that a 50-ounce limit or a 50-ounce maximum? What's the
50
thing
ounce
on the
maximum weight.
Okay. Sorry, Midnight, I got that wrong. You got it right.
For those of us that aren't exactly sure, can somebody give a ballpark as to what type of firearm would fall under that 50-ounce max? Because that's for the Desert Eagle, I would imagine, is way over. But would that limit you to like Glock 17 and under, or what?
50 ounces.
Well, you wouldn't be allowed to have a Glock 17 because it's capable of accepting a detachable magazine.
The 50 ounces.
Okay,
holds more than 10 rounds.
Okay, you two are talking at the same time. I'm trying to just get a ballpark in my head what size it's talking about.
It's about 3.5 pounds is what 50 ounces is.
Okay, thank you.
Although people in Virginia have not given up the fight. Maybe they're starting to awaken. This is a piece from MSN.com by Gregory Schneider 6 days ago. In Virginia and elsewhere, gun supporters prepare to defy new laws. This was apparently in the Was this in the Washington Post, maybe? Amelia Courthouse, Virginia. Families, church groups, hunt clubs, and neighbors began arriving 2 hours early, with hundreds spilling out of the little courthouse and down the hill to the street in the chilly night air. They were here to demand that the Board of Supervisors declare Amelia County a Second Amendment sanctuary where officials will refuse to enforce any new restrictions on gun ownership. A resistance movement is boiling up in Virginia, where Democrats rode on a platform of gun control to historic victories in state elections earlier this month. The uprising is fueled by a deep cultural gulf between rural red areas that had long wielded power in Virginia and the urban and suburban communities that now dominate. Guns are the focus. Behind that, there is a sense that a way of life is being cast aside. In the past 2 weeks, county governments from the central Piedmont to the Appalachian Southwest, Charlotte, Campbell, Carroll, Appomattox, Patrick, Dinwiddie, Pittsylvania, Lee, and Giles, have approved resolutions that defy Richmond to come take their guns. It mirrors a trend that began last year in western parts of the United States, where some law enforcement officials vowed to go to jail rather than enforce firearm restrictions, and has spread eastward. In New Mexico, 25 of 33 counties declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries after the state expanded background checks. In Illinois, nearly 2/3 of its counties have done the same. My oath of office is to uphold the Constitution of the United States, Amelia Sheriff Ricky L. Walker said Wednesday night as he waited for the supervisors to meet in this rural county of west of Richmond. If a judge ordered him to seize someone's guns under a law he viewed as unconstitutional, Walker said he wouldn't do it. That's what I hang my hat on, he said. Some of the unrest is fanned by gun rights groups such as the National Rifle Association and the Virginia Citizens Defense League, which have used social media and old-fashioned networking to offer boilerplate language for resolutions. But the movement is speaking to the anxieties of many who are unsettled by a state that has shifted from red to blue with shocking speed. Out of all of the top leaders in the new Democratic-controlled legislature hail from urban or suburban districts in Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and Richmond. Liberal suburbs outside Washington have the largest delegation in the legislature, and the status of lawmakers from rural red parts of the state has never been lower. We need to send a signal to Richmond about Northern Virginia. We don't want their influence to affect us down here. We're very different people, said Clay Scott, 25-year-old construction project manager whose family has lived in Amelia for generations. Democrats won control in the elections on the strength of suburban districts where gun violence was a central issue, amplified by a May 31st mass shooting at Virginia Beach, a municipal building that left 12 people dead, in a gun-free zone, I might add. When the General Assembly, gun-free to the workers anyway. When the General Assembly convenes in January, Governor Ralph Northam, Democrat, has promised to move quickly with Democratic leaders to pass measures such as universal background checks, limits on the types and numbers of firearms that can be purchased, and a red flag law allowing authorities to seize weapons from someone deemed a threat. The proposals were essentially on the ballot in November, said Brian Moron, Northam's Secretary of Public Safety, and the people have spoken through their votes. Gun owners are awake. The resolutions rocketing around Virginia countryside all have similar language. Philip Van Cleve of the Virginia Citizens Defense League said he drafted one for Amelia to consider, along with about 30 other counties, out of 95 total, also taking it up. Don't you remember this is the guy that Borat tricked? The head, shoulders, not the toes, not the toes. That guy. Dude capering around with guns shoved in stuffed animals, singing children's songs. Anyhow, the matter was added to the Amelia agenda too late for it to be advertised, so, by law, the board cannot vote on it until next month. Yet, a crowd of 300 or more turned out after hearing about it through word of mouth. I've never seen anything like this, Van Cleve said of the outpouring of interest. Everything has exploded right now. Gun owners are awake. A similar resolution that passed Monday in Appomattox County pledged to oppose any efforts to unconstitutionally restrict the right to bear arms. It said the county would do this through legal action, the power of the appropriation of public funds, and the right to petition for redress of grievances, and the direction to law enforcement and judiciary of Appomattox County to not enforce any unconstitutional law. The concept is modeled after the sanctuary city stance that some localities have taken in response to federal immigration enforcement efforts. In those cases, local law enforcement officials declined to take voluntary steps to help the federal government detain or deport undocumented immigrants. In theory, a Second Amendment sanctuary would be different. Refusing to carry out a judge's order to seize weapons from someone would be breaking the law. That could mean jail time. Local agencies receive funding from the state, so even adopting the stance is provocative. The notion that law enforcement would not follow the law is appalling, said Lori Haas, a longtime activist with the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence. I suspect that many of these counties and their elected officials are posturing in front of certain voters. Well, you know what, Lori? I say that the notion that legislators won't follow the Constitution is appalling. But I digress. As the sanctuary movement has spread around the country, Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence found that it generally has not led to active resistance. As a practical matter, those are largely symbolic, said Adam Skaggs, Chief Counsel and Policy Director at Giffords. We haven't seen cases where there are folks that are outright defying the law. Skaggs said the trend means that authorities in such states as Washington, Oregon, Colorado, and New Mexico might be neglecting to use legal tools that could help prevent gun violence and suicide. Yeah, like abolishing gun-free zones. While this is largely a political or symbolic gesture, I still think it's quite troubling, he said. At Amelia on Wednesday night, Delegate John J. McGuire III, Republican, Henrico, took the opportunity to show up and announce that he is seeking next year's GOP nomination to challenge U.S. Representative Abigail Spanberger, Democrat, Virginia. I don't understand what part of shall not infringe they don't understand, he proclaimed in the courthouse steps as the darkness settled on the throngs who couldn't get in. I'll fight my ass off for you. McGuire just won a second term in the House of Delegates in a nearby rural district, but he'll be in the minority now, with Democrats posting a 55-45 advantage in the House and a 21-19 edge in the Senate. Moran, the public safety secretary, didn't attend the Amelia meeting, but has been monitoring the phenomenon. He held town halls on gun control around the state over the summer, discussing solutions ahead of a special legislative session that Northam called in July to take up gun control bills. Republicans adjourned the session after only 90 minutes, enraging Democrats and handing them a campaign issue in the fall. All of his proposals have been vetted in the courts, Moran said. The courts have determined that they do not violate the Second Amendment. We feel confident that law-abiding citizens should not be concerned that their rights will be violated. Yeah, I feel confident they should be very damn afraid. Terrified, as a matter of fact. But the many residents in Amelia...
Well, that's for, they shouldn't be afraid that they're going to be, they should be, because they know for a fact, that their rights are in the crosshairs, and they need to fight like hell to protect them. Legally, not do anything stupid. Fight like hell legally.
They need to fight like the third monkey about to get on the ark. That's how they need to fight.
That was funny.
So there you have it, folks. Virginians, you let yourself in for a hell of a battle, but it looks like some of you are waking up enough to actually fight it. So please, keep doing it. Those of us who aren't in Virginia, if you want to help them out, go to the Virginia Citizens Defense League and shuffle them a few bucks.
Welcome to the same boat as
Virginia
California.
state organizations out. Shuffle them a few bucks, even $5, So whatever, so anything's going to help. We need to give them a hand because we're all in the same boat. If it happens there, it'll happen here. Go ahead, folks. You had something to say?
Said, welcome to the same boat as California. Now maybe you'll understand our struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sad, where the urban centers basically rule the rural centers.
I don't feel bad
Go
for
away,
the people.
peons, serfs, peasants.
I don't
Bow
feel
down
bad
to
for
your
the people
citified
for Virginia
masters.
at all.
And why is that, Kingpin?
Well, let's just go
I'm
through.
sorry,
a quick...
what did you say, Kingpin? I was too busy running my mouth.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't feel bad for the people of Virginia. No, not one drop. They got what they deserved. They got what they asked for. It sucks, but let's just recap a few things. Their governor admitted to wearing blackface at least more than once. As possibly also has a picture taken where he's wearing a KKK outfit. Was about to do the moonwalk during a press conference when he was asked about the blackface situations. Also said that it was all right to kill a baby after it's been delivered. Then their lieutenant governor has been charged in rape by 2 different women, and he said that it was good. It actually helped his political career. And then the Virginia Attorney General refused to entertain any charges. The Virginia government refused to hear any testimony from the 2 women. And the Attorney General for Virginia also admitted to doing blackface more than one time. And where
Didn't
were the
they
people
also elect a
protesting?
sex offender somewhere in there?
Yeah, by the way, then they elected a transsexual. Yeah, by the way.
No,
Yeah.
not a transsexual, a sex offender.
I'm not 100% sure about that one, but they did elect a transvestite type, a man that identifies as a woman.
Well,
So
whatever you want to do, I don't care about. As long as you ain't
well,
hurt
no,
nobody else, have at it.
I care about that. I don't want somebody who doesn't know who they are making policy in my government. That's where I stand on that. So. I'm not saying treat those people bad. I'm not saying that they should be harmed today. They should have all the, but let's be conscious about who we're electing to our offices. So that's what Virginia is doing right now. Where are the protests when all that stuff was happening?
Well,
Where are the sanctuary cities for that?
Someone needs to mute.
Try again.
One of y'all needs a mute.
We're all muted.
All right. The thing is, it's the urban centers that are controlling this. They have the population to impose this on. The people I feel bad for are the people that live in the smaller counties, the rural areas, who are having to, who culturally are completely different from the urbanites and have to put up with this garbage. It's the same thing that's going on in California. It's the same thing that's happening in Washington and Oregon and you know, name it. Pretty much any place that the liberals rule the roost, it's because they have the population in the cities. You know, it's what they are trying to do here in Ohio. So, yeah, I get that. I get what you're saying, but all Virginians didn't want this to happen. Now, the people that I don't feel bad for are the ones that didn't get off their ass and fight this to begin with. Y'all made your bed. Unfortunately, it affects the ones that did fight the fight. That's the bad thing.
It sucks. But, you know, you gotta... If you don't go out and vote, then you're not doing anything to block those that want to take your way of life away from you.
Yep.
And, you know, I go out and vote all the time, but, you know, I've heard this from other Republicans that I can't go and vote. I'm too busy at work, or I don't have the time to take off to go and vote. I've heard every excuse in the book, and
you make the time.
And it's either you make the time, or guess what? The other side gets elected because there weren't enough votes on your side.
Yep.
And I hate to say this, like you know, our political leanings are, you know, for sports teams, but that's how bad it is these days.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's either us or them. And unfortunately, when you're in a position like this, you have to get out there and vote. I tell everybody to go vote, even if they don't know who to vote for. Just go out and vote. It doesn't matter. Vote for someone.
Yep.
May not be the person I want you to vote for, but hey, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I care. You know, it's all on you.
Exercise
so vote,
your sovereign authority as a citizen. Vote.
You know, go and vote. Jesus. And again, because you didn't go out and vote, you got Democrats in charge of the state house and the state senate. You already had a Democratic governor, so now you're kind of screwed. You're really screwed over because, you know, they're saying, oh, we're for this or that, but really what they're for, they don't tell you, because they go out, they say one thing to you, and then they turn around and do something exactly different,
Yep.
you know, right behind your back, and that's when this stuff gets put in place. And mark my words, they're gonna bum rush this through the state house and the Senate, and just look, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll find out that the governor's already signed it.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, at that point, when they start going and taking stuff away from people, that's the point when you should be gathering up people and you should be, you know, fighting back. You know, if they start going door to door to take the stuff away from people, that's when you fight back. Now, granted, you shouldn't start a civil war.
Happening though, first,
you know,
before you start doing anything.
First, make sure you have all the information. You know that they are going door to door. Okay, if they are going off of a list that they know. And second, you know, make sure you have legal, you know, you have the ability to fight this legally, because that's the only way you're going to get it.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, fighting with you know, arms is one thing. Fighting legally is another.
You know, our country is supported by the boxes. You know, the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and if all else fails, the cartridge box. And speaking of the jury box, here's a reminder of something that's historic that's going to happen Monday. This is a piece from the Buckeye Firearms Association from Friday, November 29th by Dean Reich. U.S. Supreme Court to hear oral arguments on Second Amendment case Monday, December 2nd. Earlier this year, Buckeye Firearms Foundation was asked to be a party in an amicus brief to be filed in the upcoming U.S. Supreme Court case of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus the City of New York. After much anticipation and an attempt by New York City to moot the case or prevent it from coming before the court, the justices will finally hear oral arguments scheduled for Monday, December 2nd, 2019 from 10 to 11 a.m. A transcript of the argument should be available the same afternoon. On Friday, December 6th, the court should make available the audio of the argument. It has been 10 years since the last time the Supreme Court agreed to hear a Second Amendment case. District of Columbia versus Heller, 2008, and McDonald versus City of Chicago, 2010, both resulted in landmark rulings, and our foundation was involved in both cases, providing an amicus brief for each. In short, the Heller ruling affirmed that gun ownership is an individual right, while the McDonald ruling concluded that this right applies to the states. However, these rulings were narrowly tailored and did not decide every possible issue related to the Second Amendment and gun rights. In NYSRPA versus New York City, the court will consider whether New York City's ban on transporting a licensed, locked, and unloaded handgun to a home or shooting range outside city limits is consistent with the Second Amendment, the Commerce Clause, and the constitutional right to travel. In other words, it will take up where Heller and McDonald left off and look at whether the Second Amendment applies outside the home. Here's the official question presented to the Supreme Court. New York City prohibits its residents from possessing a handgun without a license, and the only license the city makes available to most residents allows its holder to possess her handgun only in her home or en route to one of 7 shooting ranges within the city. The city thus bans its residents from transporting a handgun to any place outside city limits, even if the handgun is unloaded and locked in a container separate from its ammunition, and even if the owner seeks to transport it only to a second home for the core constitutionally protected purpose of self-defense, or to a more convenient out-of-city shooting range to hone its safe and effective use. The city asserts that its transport ban promotes public safety by limiting the presence of handguns on city streets. But the city put forth no empirical evidence that transporting an unloaded handgun locked in a container separate from its ammunition poses a meaningful risk to public safety. Moreover, even if there were such a risk, the city's restriction poses greater safety risks by encouraging residents who are leaving town to leave their handguns behind in vacant homes, and it serves only to increase the frequency of handgun transport within city limits by forcing many residents to use an in-city range rather than more convenient ranges elsewhere. The question presented is whether the city's ban on transporting a licensed, locked, and unloaded handgun to a home or shooting range outside city limits is consistent with the Second Amendment, the Commerce Clause, and the constitutional right to travel. According to SCOTUS blog, the justices will vote on the case within a few days after the oral argument. If they decide that the case is moot, they could theoretically dismiss it relatively quickly. But the justices clearly do not regard the question as an easy one, as evidenced by the fact that they declined to dismiss the case when the city suggested that they do so this summer. So even an opinion finding the case moot could take some time. An opinion on the merits of the case is likely to take longer still, but in any event, we can expect one by the end of June. So there you go, folks. We should hear something about this by the end of June, beginning of July, maybe. And it's going to be interesting to see how narrowly the court decides to rule on this. They could just say that this one ban in New York was unconstitutional and they couldn't do it. Or they could just moot it because New York City did change the law in an effort to get the case dropped. Because what they're afraid of is that the court will rule in a sweeping fashion and say, listen, this is unconstitutional everywhere. And as a matter of fact, the Second Amendment applies outside the home, and you can't prevent people from carrying firearms. They could do that. So it's going to be interesting to see where it falls in that spectrum. Thoughts, gentlemen?
I think this does pose a serious public safety risk. You know, to each and every person that owns a gun and wants to carry it for safety, it risks their safety every day that they can't carry their gun out, or they have to have it locked in 5 different boxes to get somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, what happens if you move? and you can't transport your gun around the city. How do you get it out of New York
You're
to
not allowed.
Pennsylvania?
You're not allowed.
Right. California's playing the same stupid game with people that are moving because of taxes and all that kind of stuff. They're making it impossible to sell your house. They're taxing the crap out of people and messing with their pensions and all kinds of stuff because they're trying to keep people from moving.
Got to keep the wage slaves there, so that they can suck them dry
Yep.
to support the welfare class.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that could potentially be a bit of good news. I'm going to be watching that one carefully. And our final topic is a bit of good news. Let's go ahead and move on to that. It's a piece from bearingarms.com by Bob Owens from January 25th, 2007. Oh, never mind. How the hell did I not see that? Never mind. We'll skip this one. But, geez, I didn't see that from 2017. I thought that was from 19. I have to confess. There's the technical difficulty for the day. I didn't read the damn date.
Hold on. Kingpin?
Yes, sir.
Golfer's clap?
Yes, I'll even golf clap myself. So maybe I should just insert myself into the moron of the week here.
Yeah. Or you could just get wound up, and we can you can get the wound up some bitch of the week.
I should just insert myself into the moron of the week. Yes.
All right, if you want to do that one.
But that was an interesting story. A guy that was a former felon, nonviolent felon, it was like theft charges and whatnot, had gotten his rights restored and saved an Arizona State Trooper with his concealed carry. So good for him. Good for both of them, I guess. But not current events. Didn't happen this week. So
nope.
Yeah.
Oh well.
My bad. Speaking of moron of the week.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
Moron of the week. I don't know. Have any of you guys not seen this segment yet?
No, I've seen it before. I've heard it before. But I have to say, you may have to tie with that one for that last thing.
Yes. Moron of the week. This guy. Matter of fact, I'm going to play the intro again because I like the intro. I think it's really cool.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
In this episode of Moron of the Week, from an article on gunfreezone.net, where a redneck Jew and a Hispanic Catholic write about gun rights, self-defense, and whatever else we can think about. This is from November 26, 2019. Mom blog author thinks you are more valuable to your children dead. Pro-gun arguments generally follow a pretty consistent three-step script. 1. It's my moral right to be able to defend myself from violence and oppression. 2. It's my constitutional right as a law-abiding citizen. 3. I'm not hurting anybody, so F off and leave me alone. Anti-gun arguments can be endless rationalizations of why you don't need a gun and your rights should be restricted by the government. One common theme of anti-gun arguments are, you can protect yourself more effectively with something other than a gun. Every once in a while, an anti-gunner will make an argument so ridiculous that you wonder what type of reality they live in. Gabrielle Blair is a mommy blogger. She runs a website and wrote a book about how to be a mom and live in a house that looks like it's being featured in Better Homes and Gardens or Martha Stewart Living. We used to call these catalog homes, as in every room looked like a still frame from a housewares catalog. She and her family live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Clearly, firearms use, culture, and politics is an area of her expertise. She decided to chide gun owners about how they don't need a gun to protect themselves and instead should have. Gabrielle Blair, this is from Twitter. Gabrielle Blair, there are far better ways to protect your family than a gun. Get a life insurance policy. Yeah, this is in response to a tweet from Exposing Gun Control that said, our right to own a firearm is also our right to protect our lives, the lives of our own families and children. This is recognized by the Supreme Court of the United States, Gabrielle. You just admitted you value victims' lives over those who refuse to be victimized. That's trash. Does this woman understand how life insurance works? You have to die for it to pay. While my wife receiving 5 times my annual salary in a single lump sum will make it possible for her to pay off the mortgage and all of our debts, will a big fat check help her bathe the kids and put them to bed at night? Will it make my children's daddy's special French toast on Sunday mornings or Saturday mornings? Will it help them with their homework? I think I'm worth far more to my family alive than dead. Ms. Blair here disagrees. I wonder if she feels that way because her husband runs a web video series about their kids with fewer than 1,200 followers and looks so beta that I wonder who really sired their 6 children. Damn, dude's throwing shade. That was just the first tweet in a thread about why you really needed a gun. Unrolled for easy reading. I know you truly believe that you'll need to defend your family at gunpoint. You need to let that go. Statistically, it's just not going to happen. I know it's boring, but if you want to protect your family, things like seatbelts, fire alarms, and life insurance are your best bet. None of these things are mutually exclusive. I have car seats for my kids and I wear my seatbelt. I have fire extinguishers in critical areas of my house. In fact, if you look at my nightstand, I have a large fire extinguisher sitting right next to my biometric gun box. I can use many different things to protect my family against many different threats. The reality is, you're probably going to die of heart disease or diabetes, or just old age and natural causes. I know it's not as cool sounding as an armed standoff, but it's still true. Nobody wants to die in an armed standoff. We want to be prepared in case something bad happens. If the topic of protecting your family comes up, a gun extremist will immediately imagine an armed intruder who has come to murder. That's not going to happen. It's rare enough that it's not something people need to worry about or make decisions based on. Well, actually, according to the CDC, there are between 500,000 and 3 million defensive gun uses in the U.S. a year. According to the NPFA, there are about 350,000 house fires every year. So statistically, you're more likely to need a gun than a fire extinguisher. So maybe having both is a good idea. If the topic of protecting your family comes up among people who actually interact and care for children each day, they think of things like using car seats, preventing hormones and dangerous chemicals in food, child-proofing the cleaning supplies, and schoolyard bullying. I've done all that, and I child-proofed my guns too. Hundreds and hundreds of you have explained to me that a life insurance policy won't protect against an armed intruder. I never said it would. She wants her husband to die so she can take the money and run off with her kid's biological father. Good Lord, this guy's throwing shade. The thing you don't understand, there isn't going to be an armed intruder. That's just your paranoia. Tell that to the guy in Miami who was just robbed in his van, who we will discuss here in a moment. How often do people use guns in self-defense? Many gun owners say the primary reason they own a firearm is self-defense. But for years, experts have been starkly divided over how often people actually use guns for this purpose. Not according to the CDC. A gun in the home is far more likely to kill or maim a household member than it is to protect them. This is bullshit. Which it is. Enjoy your daydreams about armed standoffs. But that's all they are. Daydreams. Update. A shocking number of you are convinced that armed intruders will enter your home at 2 a.m., and specifically at 2 a.m. Is there like an NRA ad about a 2 a.m. break-in? Some meme I missed? Nothing good happens after midnight, which is very true. Don't answer. I don't actually want to know. Muting this thread now. She enjoys the comfort of the moral superiority of her ignorance. As a responsible father, it's up to me and nobody else, except maybe my wife, to decide what steps I can take to protect my family. I have life insurance and fire insurance and all sorts of other coverage that I hope I never have to use. I have a fire extinguisher, activated charcoal, and tourniquets that I also hope I never have to use. I have security cameras and a gun, also, that I hope I never have to use. But just in case the shit ever hits the fan, I have them, and will be glad that I do. So there we have it, folks. Gabrielle Blair, you are this week's Moron of the Week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
Yeah, what an ignorant wretch to come on with that moral high ground, false moral high ground. I know better than you. Typical liberal bullshit attitude.
Yeah.
Especially when the facts don't support her claims. But never let the facts get in the way of the agenda, right?
Well, never let a tragedy go to waste.
In a completely mythical, totally made up, far-fetched scenario, I sure hope like a meteor doesn't ever fall from the space and start breaking apart until it gets to a chunk that's big enough to just clobber this lady in the head, and then her kids have to get raised on her life insurance program. I totally don't want that to happen. I totally don't want to introduce her to Carrie Sloan either.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
Oh, wow. No,
I would love. No, dude.
No, I do.
Rex,
because then she can deal with. No, I'm not gonna say it. I won't say it.
Let's introduce her to Carrie and sell that shit on pay-per-view. Make a mint.
Oh,
Make it Patreon only.
Carrie would have a field day with her.
Mincemeat.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be just awesome.
Yep.
Oh. So, moving from that moron, Gabrielle Blair, we're going to go to what is Roll Call 219's absolute favorite segment, Self Defense Shoutouts. For those of you who are new to the show or who have never stuck around to the end, Self Defense Shoutouts are not reveling in the proposition that the bad guy has taken the room temperature challenge. I am instead reveling in the fact that the good guy isn't. First up, despite what Gabrielle Blair would say, this is from MSN.com. From CBS Miami is the original story. Miami man in van guns down AK-47 wielding robber because he didn't want to go out like a punk.
Yeah, I mentioned this yesterday.
From syndicated local CBS Miami 4 days ago. A 60-year-old Miami man said he was forced to shoot and kill a gunman who had broken into his van early Monday morning in an attempt to rob him of his jewelry. The guy I killed last night, he put an AK-47 in my damn face, said Donovan Stewart. Stewart told CBS 4's Peter Dench that he I don't know if that's what I'm going for. Peter Dench that he had to act quickly because he was worried about the safety of his 11-year-old son and girlfriend who were in the van with him. I'm from Kingstown in Jamaica, he said, and I'm not going to go out like a punk. So I emptied my Glock in his chest. This man tried to get in my van while I was sleeping, and he was surprised to see what I did. He demonstrated what he did for CBS 4. Well, he opened the door like this and pointed his AK-47, and I reached around like this and got my gun. This is how I did this to him, he said. So I thought, you're going to kill me, so now I have to act quickly because I'm trained, he said. You know I have a security license, I have a G license, and I have a state firearms license, and a concealed weapons permit, and I have a gun, and I'm a member of the NRA. I'm going to defend my life and those I love, he said. My family is innocent and just don't put an AK-47 in my face. I will not allow this to happen. This guy also hijacked a woman in a van and was found with her car key. He robbed another woman at gunpoint. You want to come looking for trouble, he said. Come to me. Come to me. I wouldn't do anything like this to anybody, and they picked the wrong person in this case. Man, I wish I could use a Jamaican accent, because this whole thing would have been hilarious to hear in that, right? Miami police officer Mike Vegas said, while this appears to be a case of self-defense, the investigation is still open. Everyone is cooperating, he said, but we still need to receive more information. We need to put all this together and determine what happened. If anybody knows anything, they should call Miami police, Vega added. Meanwhile, Dench was at his location at the crime scene. He was approached by Delilah Gator and her boyfriend, Evans Cherry. Gator said the dead gunman was the same man who terrorized her around 6 a.m. on Saturday, and robbed her at gunpoint of $600 in cash, her iPhone, and her 2018 Volkswagen. He had a gun and forced me to open my door, she said. He told me to open, so I gave him my cash right away. I feel very relieved now. This was a terrible thing to do to me. I was devastated and I was emotional. This is crazy to rob this man. He has a family, and to do something like that while he was living in a van is not right. Jerry said, karma is something else. I mean, this woman works hard for her money. Vegas said Miami police were trying to determine if the unidentified gunman who was killed had robbed other people. Yeah, you could pretty much bet this wasn't his first rodeo. But you can bet it's his last.
Yeah, that's the problem. You break the rules, you get ventilated.
That's right.
You know?
As I say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And speaking of winning stupid prizes, this is from Fox2Detroit.com by Ingrid Kelly, published 3 days ago. Suspect gets shot by T-Mobile security during robbery attempt. Detroit, Fox 2. A masked man went to a T-Mobile store announcing a robbery and left with 2 bullet wounds. A security guard put a stop to the proceedings by firing on the suspect inside the store, located inside a strip mall on West Outer Drive in Detroit at about 11:30 a.m. Tuesday. A lone male with a mask came into the T-Mobile store at this location and announced a robbery, said Lieutenant Michael Donovan, Detroit Police. There were 2 employees along with an armed security guard who fired at the suspect. Police said the robber did not fire his weapon, and he was shot twice before getting away from the scene. It is believed the man went to a medical center located right next to the strip mall. He was later transported to a nearby hospital. We ended up getting a run to the hospital where we had 1 male with 2 gunshot wounds possibly connected to the scene. For now, he's a person of interest in this case, and he's listed in critical condition as the investigation continues. Fox 2 also reached out to T-Mobile, and the company said in a statement, "We're grateful our employees are safe and we are cooperating with law enforcement in their investigation." So, luckily for them, they had a good guy with a gun there to do what? Stop the bad guy with the gun. This is a piece from Breitbart. Officer shoots as a man allegedly attacks him with a machete. The classic bring a knife to a gunfight scenario. This is from 25th November 2019. A bystander filmed as a man with a machete allegedly charged an officer, leading the officer to open fire in broad daylight. Video of the incident appears to show the man with the machete running at the officer while the officer yells, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" Shots ring out thereafter. ABC 7 reports that the suspect was taken to the hospital in unknown condition. The officer received non-life-threatening injuries.
Don't do it! Don't do it!
Obviously carrying a 9mm, right? Not a 40 or 45. So, again, good thing that there were good guys with the gun there to stop the bad guy with the machete. And last but not least, on the Self Defense Shoutouts, I'm going to have to turn off a pop-up on this one, I think. So hold on a second. Let this get going before it comes on. Come on. I know you want to do it. Maybe it's not going to. This is from WAFF.com. WAFF 48. Deputies. Limestone County man shoots, kills home intruder. From November 27, 2019. Doesn't give a byline. Limestone County, Alabama. An investigation into a deadly shooting is underway in Belmina. Limestone County deputies say the shooting happened around 12:30 a.m. Wednesday on Garrett Road in Belmina. Deputies say a resident returned home from work to find his door open. He told investigators a masked man was inside when he walked in. The intruder reportedly charged at the homeowner, who shot him in self-defense. The intruder was killed. The coroner identified him as 65-year-old David Lee Walton. Deputies say Walton lived in Belmina and knew the homeowner. The homeowner is not being charged at this time. So, despite what Gabrielle says, here we have several instances where barring the law enforcement incident, we have 3 instances where the bad guy did in fact enter the good guy's area and attempt to rob them. but was stopped because they had the means, method, and opportunity to prevent them from doing harm to them. So there you go, folks. I, as always, am humbled and amazed that you've decided to spend this time with us. But before we get into all that, let me say goodbye to my wonderful, distinguished panel. Looks like Calaveras 32 Special had to hop out, so thank you very much for coming in and joining with us tonight, Pickle. I enjoyed having you there, and you're welcome back anytime. Night Strike, where can folks find you? Do you have any words of wisdom, parting shots, anything you'd like to say, sir? Hello? Night Strike? Is this thing on? Kingpin's apparently gone too. Yeah, Night Strike's there. He's just... Dude, you're muted.
What's going on?
Trying to give you a chance to make your plugs, dude.
Shall not be infringed. There we go. That's it.
All right. Kingpin is still kicked out, so go check out David Bowling, and thank you for coming by, sir. And definitely in the thank you column, thank you to everybody who is out here. Thank you to everybody who is out there in the chat, particularly those of you who stuck from start to finish. I'm always amazed that you've chosen to spend this time on a Friday night with me when you could be doing absolutely anything else but listening to me bloviate. As always, I want to say, encourage you, particularly in light of what's happening in Virginia, to let your Congress critters and elected representatives know what you think. Send them snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, bicycle messengers, runners. Fold up a note and send it in a paper airplane. Whatever you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight.